picture was taken indoors at night, and so of course it suffers from a very common problem. The only light source was a tungsten bulb, so the whole picture is way too yellow. We need to try and sort that out. So we come to our Adjust tab, come down. The one we'll do today is Color Corrector. Okay, so what have we got here? We have a line with 3 dots on there, we have a palette here, and we've got this, 4 different ways of doing it. Right, let's take a look at this. This curve represents all the darks and lights of this particular colour, yellow. This would be absolute black here, this would be kind of the midpoint, the mid colour, which in this case is going to be yellow, and this is all the white areas. So you can see already the default ups the middle value, or it ups the yellow, so the problem's even worse. But if I take it and pull it down, you can see the picture taking a more reddish tone. There's more yellow coming out of the picture. But you can do that with that. You can also move the endpoints. So now the highlights, the lighter areas, are getting less yellow in there. Similarly, the darker areas, you can see that much more now. The darker areas are getting less yellow in there, and so they're becoming more bluish in tone. Now here, we can choose which colour we want affected by going through the spectrum. I'm going to make it a little bit more of an orangey colour than it was before, more in line with the tungsten light. Now, the nice thing about this dot here is you can move it around. So now I'm affecting more of the lighter colours, and if I move it to the other side, I'm affecting more of the darker colours. I'm pulling down the darker portions of this particular colour, if I put it there. And the other thing as well is you can put another point in there as well, so you can get some really quite fine controls there. I've boosted the yellows in the highlights. I've dropped the yellows in the highlights and I've boosted them in the shadows. You can do various different things with this. I'm going to go with about there for now. There's slightly more yellow in the highlights now than there are in the shadows. I'm trying to make the shadows a little bit cooler and the highlights a little bit warmer. That's colour theory. Very basically, if your highlights are cold, make your shadows warm, and vice versa. But look here, you've got 4 different ways of doing it. Well, the colorize, tint, color filter, and dye, well, you've got these up on the side as well. So let's take a look at those. Let's turn this off a second. And tint, colorize, color filter, and dye. Let's take a look at these, see what they do. Come to tint first. Let's start cranking it up. Well, if you take it up to 100, basically it just makes everything completely red. So that's a very simple way of doing things. Colorize. What does this do? As you take it up more, okay, that's up to 100%. You can see some of the shadow areas are being slightly less affected, and maybe 1 or 2 of these lighter areas as well. It's still really quite a strong effect. It's not attacking the deepest tones quite as much though. Color filter. Now with this you can see the darker areas are getting redded out, but some of the lighter areas around the skin, well, they've been shown a little bit of mercy by it. And let's finally try dye. Crank it up. And now this, I would be most tempted to use this if I wanted to take a black and white photograph and then tint it a certain colour. This seems to be the kindest to the overall tones, the darks and the lights there. So I'd be tempted to use that for black and white photographic work. Alright, let's get rid of all of those. Come down to the little X button, the bottom left, and get rid of all of them. Alright, come back to color corrector. So as before, make it just a little bit more orangey than it was before. I'm going to drop the darker parts. I want to drop the light parts a little as well, not by quite as much though. Okay, and what about which method are we going to use? Well, it's by default it's colorized. Let's try tint. That's being a little bit kinder to the image, I think. It's preserving some of the darker areas there, which we just saw a couple of minutes ago. Color filter, the shadows are getting a little bit too red for my liking, and dye isn't really making that much a difference to it. I'm going to go with tint on that, and let's turn it off and on again. Turn it off, very yellow, turn it on there. Okay, that works. I've got my overall colour balance sorted out there, but I just want to call up also exposure and contrast. I'm going to put them before the colour corrector as well, because remember in the previous videos we get our overall dark and light right, so it might require some retweaking. Maybe a little bit brighter, contrast. Okay, as before, I want to make it turn up to a ridiculous amount. Then bring my origin down, because I just want to make the shadows a little bit darker. Those are the shadows around there, plus also the pupils. Bring it down to 50% as before, and then start gradually bringing it up. Okay, quite happy with that. Now the last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come to my saturation tool. I'm going to put this right on the end of the chain. I just want to use this as just a safety net in case any colours are just a bit too vivid, which maybe they are at the moment. I'm going to try taking this saturation down a little bit. I can either do it there where I get to about 40.25, or I can make it completely black and white and bring it up to the colour I think is about right. About there. It's worked out about the same this time. Sometimes you find if you take it down, you'll get to like 45. If you bring it up from grey, you'll get to about 35. You'll find a discrepancy going on there. Okay, let's take a look at this with everything switched off. The original photograph, very yellow, with everything put on again there. Yeah, that's starting to look quite nice. In fact, I think I might save this. Press plus, and I'm going to call it AA, as with my previous filter, and I'll call this Tungsten Correct 01, because I can always do more. Alright, let's move on to a little bit more of a precise way of editing the colour balance. I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, maybe you consider clicking on one of the links below and check out my game called Disco Baby, which is on the iTunes Store or Android stores like Google Play. It has 3 different games in it, a memory game, a maths game for children, and a dance along with me game for toddlers to join in with. Thanks for your time.
Wow.